Okay.
Okay, I have Jean here due to popular request.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the kind comments.
So everybody that wanted more Jean is getting more Jean, and you better get it while the getting's good, because I had to haul his ass in here at exactly 11:11 to make this happen.
That was something.
So one of the questions that people had for you was how the last video, which I will link below, by the way, the last video that we did in the Hammock session was in June of 2020, and you were talking about how your mindset had shifted and you were able to like get out of the way and get that first initial big success in the area that you were working in.
Yeah.
And that came after a 2-week period where you were saying,
yes, I was doing that mantra in the car.
I'm a savvy businessman who everything I touch
forget,
turns to gold. It was something like that.
Yeah,
But
I don't think the specifics of the phrase matter. Whatever resonates with
it's
you.
something shifted.
Yes, I believe so, because obviously the results were the indicator. Right?
So anyway, yeah, we don't need to go all back into that because I'll just link the video. But so what do you feel like? It's almost 5 years later now. You are wildly more successful than you were then.
Oh.
To my delight and benefit. So, what would you say? Is there anything that's just jumps right out that's changed over the last 5 years?
Yeah, things have changed. Basically, like I came to realize why the mantra was working, and I no longer have I have a mantra, but it's not like a real world type of mantra.
Would you care to share your mantra?
It
doesn't have to be
any of the Hindu mantras.
It doesn't have to be anything having to do with manifesting.
Here's the thing with mantras. That's why I said in the beginning, the specifics don't matter. They only matter to you. So I could have said a multitude of phrases, and I picked the one that made me feel something right away. That's when you know you've got a good one. Like if you can, if you could say it a couple times and then you feel a shift, an energetic shift in the body, that you want to go with that.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, but yeah, now my mantra is like just a generic Hindu mantra, because I love Hinduism and Buddhism and
Let's
all
hear
that
it.
Stuff. It doesn't matter. It's my mantra.
Everybody wants to hear it.
Yeah, the mantra doesn't matter. There's this great story about a disciple goes to his master and he's like, hey master, I need a mantra, blah blah blah, and the master's like, well, your secret mantra is Ram, which is like a generic plain Jane, like it's like Om, Ram, these are the standards. So the student's like, oh yeah, this is great, this is my secret mantra. Anyways, he goes down to the Ganges River and everyone's like washing themselves, and he looks around and like every other person is washing themselves and going Ram, 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 and he's like, dude, what the hell? Like this is my secret. Like he goes back to his teacher and he's like, master, like everyone is. And anyways, the long and short of it is the teacher's like, hey, I said that was for you. And what did you do? You went out into the world and you used that intellectual mind of yours to make deductions, and now you've cheapened it. You've taken all the power out of it with your intellectualism, which is a very nice segue into this thing, is that my ultimate conclusion has become that we're getting in the way. I was getting in the way all those years. I was working too hard. I was trying too hard. Nature, God, source, whatever, whatever you want to call it, the invisible thing that I like to call it as, the Shakti energy, it's in a constant state of trying to deliver the goods. It knows what you want. I mean, like...
It's you, really, right?
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
That gets interesting because
it's some part of you.
Yeah, it's the big self. But, for me personally, I want to integrate, because that's the goal in a spiritual seeker, is you want to integrate with the higher self. But, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I've come to the conclusion that for me, it's easier to see it as like a caring grandmother.
Outside of yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's just easier to feel that way about
You're
it.
in human form.
It does not matter either which one you go
you're
with.
in
It's
human
about
form.
how you feel. It's about how it makes you feel.
Yeah. So unless you go to the Himalayas and do that yogi stuff for the next 30 years, the chances of integrating in any real way like that, unless you have some sort of like a Satori moment or a Kundalini moment, is unlikely. It's pretty thin. So for me, like, it's more labor intensive to be like, well, this is just me doing it. I've just, for me, it's more comfortable to know that, okay, conceptually I understand it's self, there's only a singular self, but while I'm in human form, it's tough to be in that mind frame all the time.
There's just like resistance to the idea that it's you versus it just feels better when it's somebody outside.
Yeah,
like
there is, there is a loving divine presence, essence that's carried me the whole way. And it turns out that, this is after many years of reflection since we last sat down. I was kind of still a bit overwhelmed with like, wow, what's changed, what's different? And I've really been looking at it because I wanted to understand it. And the conclusion that I've came down to is that like, it knows what I want. It knows what my desire is, or she knows, or what, he knows, or it knows. And it knows it more intimately than I do even. But again, now we're getting into that higher self stuff, and it's like, it hears my thoughts, it knows. And it's a caring grandmother, and it wants to deliver the stuff. But like a 12-year-old or a 7-year-old, I'm like that child who keeps tinkering and isn't getting it the way he wants to get it. And I'm just toiling and tinkering and moving stuff around. And that divine grandmother just wants me to experience joy, and I have it, but I just keep mucking it up. And again, and this goes back to that yogi story, the intellectual mind is getting in there with the math and the numbers and the statistical data and past experiences, and it's trying to fit it into the box. And this is why I think the whole manifestation thing eludes a lot of people. We're like in a constant state of creation. And the thing we're creating is the thing we want. Well, why don't I have it? You don't have it because you're a child who doesn't understand that world, and you think you do, and you're moving the pieces around. You're the self-sabotage concept. That's all that's happening. So
I like the way you put that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this thing. Like, how much can I? By the way, this is another thing that's been coming up lately. This the 7 virtues or the 7 deadly sins. I know it's all old generic religious stuff, but it's in all the world religions. And what I've realized is like when you toil, you are actively opposing the virtues. So why isn't this working? Why don't I have this thing I want? I'm not working hard enough, or I'm not manifesting hard enough, which is that. I'm sure people think that.
Yeah.
It's a crazy
Oh yeah. Tons of people think that.
Right. I'm not creating hard enough. I'm not being smart. I need strategy. And it's like, no, you are actively rejecting patience, or you are actively rejecting acceptance or surrender,
or just continuing to block.
Yeah. Yes. But what I'm
something
saying,
that's trying to come easily with all that
right, but
stuff.
here's the thing. It's nice to know how you're blocking it, because then you could zero in on that and say, I need to be more patient.
Yeah.
I'm being impatient. Or
stop obsessing about it.
Yeah, or like, oh, this thing happened. Thing A happened, but I wanted thing B to happen. This isn't right. I'm going to get intellectual and roll my sleeves up and really get in the dirt here. And it's like, no, acceptance. Do you trust the divine to give it to you? The divine essence makes grass grow with sun and water, right?
The grass doesn't try to grow, it grows.
Yeah, it grows. And it's like, but humans, although we're a part of nature, we for some reason don't believe that the sustenance that the trees get and the animals get, it is also bestowed on us, because the egoic intellectual mind
is terrified. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it just comes in, it's got to tinker, it's got to move stuff.
God, even thinking about just rolling with it is terrifying to me. Like,
Well-
just being the grass that grows. The immediate thought is all kinds of bad things will happen to me if I do that. It's
Right,
like my literal
exactly.
first thought or
Yeah.
first feeling is that every time I think about that.
Right. And
It's
again,
challenging.
if you look at the virtues, it becomes pretty clear that you're not surrendering or accepting. It's, they phrase it different ways, or you're being impatient, or just look at the virtues and be honest with yourself and say, which one of these am I using as muscle to get what I want? Because that's what's in the way. And it's like,
Agree.
just accept what life is throwing at you and be patient with it. I could almost guarantee that any viewer that you have that's still like, why can't I achieve this thing? I even hate to use the word manifestation anymore. I just
Me
think
too. I fucking hate that word.
Yeah, it's become this thing on the internet that I just like.
Yeah.
It's become something else because like we're in a constant state of creation and manifesting. Like before there was a YouTube, or before Neville showed up to read text that was written God knows how long, and before that text was written from mouth to mouth,
Passing
like
it down,
storytelling
yeah.
form. It's like, dude, the Bible's an original thing that show, or these ancient texts? No, dude, people sat around a campfire, and these are old concepts. You're in a constant state of creation, but now we've turned it into like this niched out thing, and I'm going to use technique. And dude, it's all been written. It's all been written. Just do the stuff. Look at the virtues. You don't have to attach it to the church or, oh, I got a negative childhood history with going to the church. Dude, nobody cares. I mean, come on.
They care.
Okay, well, that taught, you know what? That's another thing you're doing to get in the way. The blueprints are all there. They're pretty clear. If you don't have harmony and discord in your day-to-day life, the chances are you're falling really short on one of the virtues or a bunch of them.
Harmony and discord, or did you mean something besides discord? Is that the right word?
If you don't have harmony in your day-to-day, if there's no flow, if you're constantly agitated. I mean, think about it. Anyone who's constantly agitated is probably not practicing acceptance, I would think, right? Like if you're constantly agitated, are you really accepting what the world is like putting in front of you?
You're definitely doing something that you shouldn't be doing if you're constantly agitated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something mental.
Yeah. So that would be discord. You want harmony. You want there
Peace.
are difficult people in the world, right? And you could.
Yes, there certainly
right.
are.
So you could be like, wow, this guy's a real douchebag, and that's okay. And sometimes you're in a situation where it's like, wow, this guy's a real douchebag, and I'm trapped in a room. That gets a little challenging, right? But
Yes.
if we're really honest with each other and we think about it, those moments are rare. The real issue, it's kind of like...
Is you.
Yeah, the real
Yeah.
issue is you're not in a room with a douchebag all the time. If you are, you have to change that. If,
Yeah.
that's
What's
your
that
life
saying? If you run
circumstance.
into an asshole once, you ran into an asshole. If you're running into assholes all day, you're the
You're
asshole.
the asshole. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, don't blame the victim.
So, sorry, you're probably talking exactly about what somebody wants to hear right now, but I have to go back to something that you said that I think people...
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody specifically who is a teacher in Russia left a comment saying that she discussed... I think I sent you that comment,
tough.
didn't I? Talked
No.
about... discussed your video with her students or something, but you were saying... I don't know, this stood out to me. You were saying that you feel like you've had a loving presence there throughout your life, and without going into too much detail, without going into any detail really about your life,
No detail.
unless you want to. I mean, I wouldn't say you've had the easiest life.
Yeah, I would.
You've had plenty of serious shit. I mean,
Yeah.
Jean is an immigrant from Eastern Europe,
Yep.
and that whole story,
Yeah.
from all angles, all people involved, was difficult. So, I mean, there are a lot of people, like, anytime I post videos about stuff, I get comments like, I always give, but I never get anything in return. If I'm making a point, like, giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin, and you're like, somebody will say, yeah, I always give, but I never receive. And then somebody will undoubtedly say, well, there's been no loving presence there in my life.
You're not noticing. I'm sorry. I hate
Do you feel like you always felt that way, or is this like a recent
No,
thing?
no. I was that guy at some point.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm bringing it
I
up.
realized I wasn't noticing. Do you know why? Because I was doubling and tripling down on, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to roll up my sleeves, and I'm really going to work hard to make it happen this time. And the more you do that, the further away it becomes. And I know that all this shit sounds cliche. I totally get it. But the time I was furthest from the essence, from feeling like, at some point I just got quiet, and I said, you know what, let me really recall my life. And I was like, wow, man, I had made some really bad decisions over my life, and came within inches multiple times of like curtains.
Complete destruction. Yeah.
But somehow, in some way, and I realized, I'm like, wow, this thing has been at my side all along, and the only thing I've been aware of is, oh, I'm smart, I can do this, or like, oh, I got to be tougher. It's been pretty egoic, which again ties in everything. The less ego, the less like, it's me, I'm doing it, I. It's like, no, you're the 5-year-old who doesn't know any better. So give it all up to grace, and let the hand of divinity nurture you into a peaceful, calm state, which is the creation of your desires or some sort of fulfillment, right? Because we all know that it's not the thing you're after, it's the feeling that thing is going to give you, right? And
no, a lot of people really do not believe that, or they just can't see that.
There's still some road to travel.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I'm realizing that, like, don't get me wrong, like, I still, hey, I'm a mammal. I'm in the world. There is nature. Well, you're imagining this. Okay, but when I stub my toe, it hurts. So
yep.
I have that old saying, when in Rome, do like the Romans. Like, okay, I imagine all this. It's a dream. But you know what? I'm all in, man. I'm going to be human. I'm going to be kind to people. Well, they're not even real. Or they're you pushed out. Great. But if I'm going to get a little too woo if I go with I need to go to the Himalayas if I'm going to roll with that. Here, it's like, I'm going to play the game. I'm here. I don't remember, but I manifested myself into this form to have this experience. You know what? I'm going to express it fully. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to give a shit about money and paying rent on time and preparing for a nice retirement. I'm going to be nice to strangers. That's always been a big one for me, and I think I get it because when I first came here, I was so young. I didn't speak the language, and there was this constant fear of any new classroom I walk into, everyone's looking at me like I'm green with antennas, and it left an impact.
Dude, I remember being in elementary school and looking at kids from other countries like they were green with antennas. That wasn't even just you.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre.
I know, yeah, and it was a different time, right? The 80s and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a different time, but I remember specifically thinking, I'm like, I never want anyone to experience this, and I work really hard when I have like pretty intense sensory because of like childhood trauma. You start to develop a hypervigilance. So when I'm in a room or in an environment where I'm seeing someone's like in a corner, and I could just tell like somebody needs to go talk to this person and kind of incorporate them into the environment, because I could see they're kind of boxed out.
I feel like I've seen you do that in social settings. It's
super important. Like, so I'm playing the game. I want to be kind to people. I want to hold the door for little old ladies, right? I want to make sure people feel seen, especially in today's day and age. I mean, I know we're kind of, I don't know how, I'm going on tangents here, but I know everybody wants to manifest. My summation here is, get out of the way. I'm sure people have heard this. I hope they have. Pause. No, please go.
Don't forget what you were going to say.
Sure.
How often do you and I really ever talk about this anymore? Once a month, or like, how often do we have? I swear my entire channel is about getting out of the way. Like the exact words you're saying.
Oh, really?
We don't talk about this. This isn't like something we discuss. So it's just another person with another angle saying the same thing. Anyway, your summation is, like, get out of the way.
Yeah, you get out of the way. And again, I know everyone loves a technique. And I love techniques too. And I think
Everybody loves a good technique.
everyone does, because me saying like get out of the way isn't really a technique.
Right.
It's like this ambiguous kind of like.
Don't worry, I got you covered. I
Right.
40 videos over the last month on
If
getting
you
out of the
guys
way.
want a technique, I think okay, some self-reflection is critical, because you got to be able to maybe late at night. I know nobody wants to meditate; it's tough, blah blah blah. But late at night, try to be honest with yourself and like review your actions and like think about the virtues and just really just like have I surrendered? You know, the Buddhists have surrender, and then the Christian faith has acceptance. And, you know, but it's really the same thing, because if you accept an outcome, you have surrendered to it. So these things are intact, and just really look at them. You know, like, oh, yeah, I want to be a successful business person. Right. So are you doing that sloth thing on the 7 deadly sins? Because the sloth thing is completely contrary to you attaining that stuff. I feel like they're like a roadmap, or like kind of like a blueprint, a template for things you can do to kind of get back on the right track, I suppose. And then everything else will be like kind of pushed your way.
People think that surrender and acceptance and stuff like that is sort of like counter to the idea that you are God and you create everything, you know, like acceptance. I made a video a long time ago about like acceptance and allowance. I was trying, allowing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think
Like,
this whole
do
idea
you
of like,
think
I
that-
don't have to get off the couch. I can be a sloth.
That is a dead horse that has been beaten to death in this community. So, yeah, you probably are going to have to take action. That's pretty much established.
Right. So here's my thing with that. Just like I was saying earlier about like, I get the whole big self thing and you are God thing, but you're in human form with limited sensory input and limited creative ability. You know, they'll say things like,
That's a limiting belief.
Exactly. Well, here's the kicker. When I was in my
truth is
teens, I
limiting.
had a couple of the out-of-body experiences through lucid dreaming. Have not been able to get back there once I hit my early 20s. And I've heard people say this on YouTube, who also do some astral projection. You know, when you're in the astral body, as soon as you think it, it becomes. So you could say, oh, I want to be downstairs, and you're downstairs. Like, that's what these folks are saying on your channel. Like, you should be able to just think it and it manifests. So I could be a sloth, screw the virtues. I'll just be a sloth and I'll think my way into Elon Musk status.
Ooh, controversial.
Why? Oh, because I'm not even
Don't go there.
political.
Don't go there.
Some other rich guy. Put the rich guy of your choice in. The point I'm trying to make is that you are not in the astral body. You are in the physical body. And there are levels to this shit. There really are, right? Because when you're, when you're a rock, you can't even
Aren't
get
rocks
off the couch.
supposedly conscious?
Everything is conscious, but it's
That
a
wasn't
lower,
the point you were trying to make.
Right, I'm just saying the rock is a lower vibration. The rock can have a desire. Good luck, right? But you have a body. You can move around. My whole thing is like, yes, theoretically, you should be able to create with thought alone, and you will. You'll be able to do that. But now we're getting into some esoteric, ethereal stuff, and I feel like your channel maybe, I don't watch your stuff, but I'm assuming it's a little bit more, we're in the world, how can we get what we want? Because I think it's super important to get what you want. I'll just say it. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being like, I don't even care what anyone thinks it sounds like. It's super important to have a desire and get it, because that is the creative process. You're
Yes.
a budding rose. You need to open up your petals and have the sun shine, and you need to grow. That is what you're doing in human form. And what that looks like, the petals opening, is, ooh, I really want this thing. It's going to make me feel great, and I want to achieve it, and that'll be the great feeling. It's super important. You should have your desires fulfilled. My takeaway from all of this is my technique for now. Maybe we'll do another one of these sessions, but I think my message would be, please look at just Wikipedia that crap and look at the virtues. You could use any of the religions. They're all kind of the same. And I think what most of you guys are going to find is that you're either being impatient or you're not accepting what the Great Mother is trying to give you. She's going to give it to you in a way that's far beyond your ability to imagine.
Oof. This or something better is not tolerated in this community. Which is so absurd. Like, why would... I've made this point like a million times. Why would you not want something that is better than what you're... It's like, no, I want the thing I want.
By the way...
It's like, no, you don't. Okay, actually, you would love the thing that's better.
I'm starting to get, an idea of some of your viewers. Way too much...
No. That's not most of the people. That's the greater... mainstream manifestation community.
Yeah.
No, that is definitely not the people on my channel, not at this point anyway.
By the way, this totally loops back around to my whole thesis this whole time we're talking. Get the little I, egoic mind, out of the way. This is why this is happening on YouTube and or wherever else it goes on, the manifestation stuff. You're in the way, you're tinkering too much, excuse the numbers if they're wrong. I remember reading somewhere, and this is way back, we've known about this for a while. The human mind has 3 parts. It's got the left, the right, and then the center, the processing brain in the back that does the heart beating. So the left brain, that's your egoic mind. That's the math and numbers, sciences brain. It processes about, the numbers could be a little off, but not by much, 12 bits per second. The center brain that works the body, they think that does about 2 million bits per second. 2 million bits. Yes, the one that's doing the heart beating, the breathing, the cell structures. And the right brain, which is the divinity mind, the one that's connected to the etheric source, they don't know how many bits it processes. They think it's unlimited. It's shrouded in mystery.
Wow.
So what I'm talking about is like, the left brain, that's your village idiot. That's you. That's the 12-year-old walking around in an environment it's more or less clueless about. Just like most 12-year-olds don't know how the world works. You don't know how creation works. You're the village idiot. So why don't you let the right side of the brain, right? The divine hand, that essence that's been carrying you this whole way. If it wasn't there, you would have been dead a long time ago. You know, even though your heart beats and you breathe, if that thing wasn't getting you out of the way when danger was coming, you would have been gone a long time ago. So all I'm suggesting is forget your 12-bit brain. Don't give it that much credibility. And just let the right side of the brain carry you home.
Yes,
and the way to do that is be patient, because you don't know any better. And when something happens, when the 12-bit, the village idiot says, hey, this isn't right, it's not supposed to go like that, I'm supposed to have this other better result, why don't you just accept the fact that it's being served to you in all around the corners to get you to that destination, and you want to take a straight line. It is the hard,
It's the hardest thing for people.
Patience and acceptance.
Neville, so I was reading Feeling is the Secret, and, to just read through it before I'm going to read it on audio.
That's my favorite work of his.
He says in there basically that, I'm paraphrasing this. This is what I took from it, but he basically says your reason is there to, basically you need to convince yourself of this new state. He uses the word convince like multiple times. Like, you need to convince yourself to feel this way. And that, in my opinion, is what the 12-bit brain is for. That's the only use of that thing, is to convince yourself, this is possible.
Right.
The right side of my brain will get me there, whatever you were just saying. But that's the function of your reason.
Yeah.
Is not to figure out how it's going to happen, but to convince yourself in whatever way you can that it will, or it's possible, or to convince yourself into the state of having the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that goes along with what you just said.
Different modalities, because if you think about it, it's like, you can have that feeling. There are a number of ways to make this happen. That feeling. Yep. Right. Like, that's, by the way, that's a great technique from Neville. Right? Because it's essentially telling you, if you're constantly feeling that way, there's some sort of unification happening.
Yeah, well, he uses the word convince, which you could take any number of ways. I mean, you could convince yourself by falling asleep in a feeling every night, right? Yeah. That's technically convincing yourself. And for me, I'm on my channel, I'm always just talking. I like to intellectualize it and convince myself that way because it's more fun for me.
Yes,
It's like a puzzle. So,
but again, like
all roads lead to God, as they say.
yes, but again, my whole thing is right, and we all have different, like, our minds work different ways. Like that might not work for other people, but I feel like the gist of it is that we're using our intellectual minds to work in the physical world, to move parts around, and it's all based on memory, programming from society, and statistics. Whether you know statistics or not, we're all pattern-based. Mammals are pattern-based creatures. We see something happen 3 times, and it's like, well, if it happened 3 times, it'll happen that 4th time too, and maybe it will. But I think the idea is to just shift, like, hey, this is what I want. Just you sit down and you say to yourself, and you could just do this one time. Just sit down and honestly just say to yourself, inside, even in your mind, without even, having to speak the words, this is really what I want, and I trust that whatever you want to call the invisible thing, I trust that as it's taken care of me and gotten me nourishment and safety and shelter for my entire life, that it can do this much simpler thing. Because guess what? Shelter, food, and safety, those are like the most critical ones, right? Maslow's pyramid. If you don't have those, dude, you're not desiring anything other than that.
I mean, if you really do that, that should be such a feeling of relief. Even thinking those words as you're saying them, I'm like, yeah. I mean, what more are you to do? You don't need to do anything else.
You're actually, here's the thing, you're not actually doing anything. There's that great concept of doership, non-doership in Hinduism. So the concept is you take an action and then you take the village idiot takes responsibility for it within a millisecond. But that action that you took, you are not the doer. And the concept is you are spontaneously doing things driven by a divine intelligence. But because of the egoic mind, we're programmed to be like, oh, you see what I did there? Man, I really made that work. Man, I'm a sharp dude. I'm a pretty sharp dude. And that is the trap. And the more you think that way, the deeper you get into tinkering and taking responsibility for it, and you just muck up the works. And it's hard not to do that. So all I'm suggesting is, I'm trying to be realistic about my technique, because I realize even I fail to not catch that inner voice. We're so conditioned. It's crazy. Like, I'm always taking credit for it, unless I stop myself and I'm like, dude, you are not the doer. This is all illusory. Your mind is weaving a story about what's going on, and it's wrong. So what I suggest is, like, nuts and bolts, worldly human, look at the virtues, understand where your shortcomings are, and don't beat yourself up about it. Just understand where the shortcomings are, and just quietly sit and say, God or Great Mother or whatever, source, you know what I want. We've been together on this thing since day one. You know exactly what I want. I'm not going to keep repeating this mantra because I'm the village idiot, not you. I don't need to tell you 100 times. You know better than I do. You know what I want. Please, I'm surrendering it to you. I'm going to do the best. I'm going to try to follow the virtues. I'm going to be nice to people. I'm not going to be impatient. I'm not going to get frustrated when a result comes that I wasn't expecting or that I thought was a bad result. And I'm just going to keep reminding myself that I'm just rolling with you. You just put it in front of me, and I'm just going to assume this is the river, the stream we're going on. And I'm hopeful that you'll bring me to the end of it, just like you've brought me to right now from my birth. And hey, I'm still in peace. I still care. I still show up. I still watch manifestation videos because it matters to me. Like, the spirit is alive in me, right? Like, when you don't, that's why I think you should have your desire. When the desire goes, your life is over. And I know the Buddhists are like, well, that's the counter argument I'll hear, like, oh, the Buddhists shun all desire and stuff. Go live in a cave. None of you guys are going to do that. Okay? You want to
I might.
Okay, you want to do the hardcore stuff, you have to be an ascetic, you have to remove yourself from society. Go live in a cave. But there's nothing wrong with us being here. I think having a desire and completing it is the peak of spiritual experience in a mammalian body. I honestly believe that. I don't think there's anything bad. I actually think it's more destructive when your desire doesn't come true. What do you think about that?
When your desire doesn't come true?
Yes. I mean, when your desire doesn't come to pass. I think it's more destructive than like, oh, look at this greedy son of a bitch. Or, you know.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think your desires need to come
I mean,
to
if your
fruition.
desire, that's the thing. I guess the reason I don't know is because I don't view desire that way. I think if you have an actual desire, it's like, it's going to happen. And that's the way I think about it.
Well,
like any real desire that I go, oh, I don't like this, I'm just going to push this away, I don't want this thing, it'll pop back up again. It's not going to go away.
Right.
And when it keeps popping back up, then I know it's like, okay, that's just the way I look at it. And, you know, I don't like want a lot of things, but if I really want something, like, I'm just like, well, this isn't even, it's like what you're saying. It's not even of you. It's beyond you. And that's why yes, it should be fulfilled, because
I think when you don't fulfill a desire, it's the most clear way to let you know that you're not trusting the thing that created this whole thing in the first place.
Well, some desires aren't actually even true desires anyway. They're just impulses or compulsions.
That's between you and your mind.
Exactly. Yeah, I think people get confused by that a lot. They confuse a compulsion with a desire.
If you're getting confused about that, you probably shouldn't be watching manifestation videos. You are so far away from your true essence. You're so far away from your true essence that don't worry about manifesting. Like
that's gonna fall on deaf ears. That's okay though.
Yeah, I'm basically saying, like, if you do this the right way, the things do come to fruition. And the only
that's their nature. It's just exactly. Like grass doesn't try to grow.
Exactly.
Your whatever a true desire is doesn't need your input unless you're compelled to do something which you won't even know that you're being compelled to do it at the time. It's meant to be fulfilled.
The need to have an outcome is the planting of the seed, and the virtues are the light and the water that'll make it grow. That's as basic as I can get it. And you toiling in the three-dimensional world of nature is like literally putting up an umbrella over the soil when it rains and where the sun shines.
So would you say that this is the answer to the question about how your mindset about money has changed more over the last 5 years, basically? Because that's basically was basically your answer to it.
Well, it's still a work in progress for me as well. Like I'm saying these things. I'm actually saying them to myself, really. That's all anyone.
That's what I say. I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, I'm talking to myself. But I have seen these things work, and I have, because the way our lives are set up, I have a lot of time. Like, I don't have a family or kids. I have a lot of alone time, and I'm interested in mind and spirituality and God, and I sit and I look at these things because I can afford to. That's a luxury most people can't afford. And this is what's glaringly obvious. Like,
could not agree more.
Yeah, the desire is the seed, but you need the sun and the water. And guess what? The sun and the water, that's not you. That's the heavens. You're the earth, right? The man body, the woman body, that's dirt. That's the earth. That's what we're made out of.
No need to be politically correct.
Okay, well, yeah. Anyways, I don't care about any of that. But what I'm saying is, like, you plant the seed, you give the initial desire. Or, like, what does Neville say? Like, you inseminate the egg or whatever, right?
There's that. He says it in a lot of...
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways.
Illustrious ways. Yeah. But no, his whole thing is you drop the seed and... you don't keep watering it, pulling it up to see where it's at.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. You have to let go with faith, like you're saying.
That's
but
exactly.
This gets lost in the mainstream manifesting community. But that's okay.
When I was doing the mantra, I needed to be doing the mantra. Because if I would tell myself what I'm saying now, I'd be like, this is some crazy shit.
Oh, yeah.
So I get it. Like, I'm not suggesting don't do that thing I did in the car. If I was so far away from this at that time that I needed a kind of a blunt force to really like
Hammer it in.
yeah.
Yep.
And dude, guess what it took? It took me like a parrot repeating two statements until my mind was saturated with it, and that loosened something up. Because you know what? For all I know, maybe it exhausted my egoic mind from tinkering. Because it was just like, no,
You were like, I'm giving up on this dumb thing I've been doing that's not producing anything,
Yeah.
and then you kind of like stumbled onto the thing
it
that
was
did work
yeah, it was like
spontaneously.
exactly. I'm glad we're bringing this up because I haven't really thought about it too much. But if you really think about it, I exhausted the 12-year-old who insisted on making things right and working really hard to get this candy bar. I exhausted that kid. He had a sugar crash and he went to bed. And when that happened, lo and behold, things are just like, here's a little more, here's some more. And it's like, I can't believe this, but okay, I'm going to go with it. This feels really good. And here's more, and here's more.
So let's because I really got excited when that person left that comment from Russia.
The Russian teacher?
Yeah,
I can
let's
relate.
just
I mean,
let's just take a few minutes to
Sure.
like, I don't know, like if you're somebody who's in or from that area of the world, which definitely has different culture and values and things are different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say it's especially hard coming from that type of mentality, and like what would you say to people, because actually people do watch my channel from over in that area, so it's hard. I think it's a lot easier in America where you have your woo-woo wine aunt who introduces you to this stuff when you're 12, but that was not the case in Russia.
Well, we have YouTube and the internet for that now, where we're pretty global communications. The Russia thing or the Ukraine thing, because I originated from Russia, but it is now Ukraine because of when the wall came down in '89. So I get both of these people. You know what I mean? Like, I get both of these cultures. They're pretty much the same culture. It's the same people fighting each other.
Yeah.
I will say this, with the way the government has been there historically, it's never changed. It's never really been a democracy. Now with the war, the conflict, you're in a room with the douchebag. That's what that environment is. And I really feel for all those folks. And I hope...
'Cause you're in the squeeze.
Think about it. I think, how can you, what does your day-to-day look like? I couldn't even imagine what these people must be going through.
Well, what about people that aren't like directly impacted by that stuff? Like, what about just the general mentality that you see different between Russians and Americans?
By the way, have you noticed how your environment dictates your desire, kind of? So, like, if you're in a third world country, you're not thinking, ooh, I really want to be like an Elon Musk. Because your environment says, ooh, I really want the hut with the 3 rooms. I'm just saying, you can laugh at it if you want, but the environment plays...
I'm laughing because I actually don't know. I only know this.
Yeah.
And I don't have a reference point, and I'm wondering, is that true? I don't know. That's why I was laughing. I'm like, is that really what it is?
Yeah, no, of course.
Then again, I mean, the Africans that I donated money to immediately bought a mattress and a metal roof.
Yeah,
I think you're probably right.
Point. And that's why I'm saying, the reason why I bring it up is because the teacher in Ukraine or Russia, her environment is going to dictate what's possible in her mind. I mean, I really don't, we've talked a lot about like transcending the village idiot, but the village idiot, it has its use. Like, it's not going to be like, hey, I want to manifest a bunch of angel wings and get the hell off of this floating rock. You're not going to, right? Most people aren't sitting around trying to manifest that.
I don't know. That's the thing. You probably know better than I do because I just can't get in. I can't understand what other people are thinking about.
Well, I'm almost 100% certain if most people are looking for their special person, they're not thinking of growing wings and flying off the planet, right? I'm just saying, let's be realistic. Your egoic mind is in play. I'm simply suggesting, when it comes to pursuing the things you want, as you take action, which you should, as you take action towards your thing, as things start to come in, your bias is going to kick in. Your egoic bias is going to kick in, and you're going to say, no, it was supposed to be 1, 2, 3, this is 1-3. Where's 2? This isn't right. All I'm suggesting is pump your brakes and say, hey, you know what? I didn't have it figured out right. It's supposed to go like this instead.
I like that.
Yeah.
So nothing in particular for people who have a Eastern European type
I don't think
of
so,
mindset?
because I'm sure this person is trying to manifest or desire something they see in their environment. It's very much attainable, but I'm willing to bet that this like generic rule of thumb I just gave everybody is likely in play.
It's always I mean, that's always in play with people,
if you just
for sure.
sit quietly for a minute and just ask yourself, am I accepting outcomes? You're probably gonna, if you're frustrated, you're gonna find that, how dare you? No, this isn't right. It's like, no, stop that, or you're not.
Do you
you're
feel
being
like that
impatient.
was the case for you? Because like I felt like you in the last video talked about some of the like ideas about money and ideas about things like that were different for you because you know that were particularly challenging in certain ways.
Yes.
Going with that type of culture versus like the things that are a problem for me as
you had a different again, we're right back to environment.
Yeah. So you're saying basically that the thing for people that are in Eastern Europe or Russia or wherever is just your environment is dictating your desires?
Yeah, like
not necessarily that there's an impediment there due to the culture that you can be aware
because
of.
Think about it. Yeah, your mind is working, and we are mammals are pattern-based creatures. So when you're in your environment, you see ABC happening all the time. Where are you ever going to want to desire E? You're going to see ABCD, ABCD. When does E come into your mind if it's not in your environment?
But what about the cultural programming? That's what I'm getting at more. Like, am I still missing it?
I mean,
like
that is the cultural. What you see is what you get, and that's that.
But
right?
So, say you're in Russia or someplace where you have certain ideas about money, like what were yours? I have to work hard. It's really hard to get it. I'm probably not going to have enough. My family's never really been comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty young when I left, but in Russia, and Russia's changed and Ukraine has changed since '89. But communist Russia, I'm pretty certain there was no in the environment. There was no I'm gonna rise above this poverty line. Everybody's broke. You know what your desire is? I hope they don't run out of bread by the time this bread line pushes me to the front door.
And I'm 5 years old.
Well, that's
I know, I'm just kidding. But, so, I don't know, I guess I'm just trying to get at, like, specific, just because I'm thinking of the one commenter, specifically, he or she, I don't remember, I don't think I could tell who it was, but they said, that they were discussing this with their students, specifically because you were from that area, and there must have been something especially appealing about the, sort of like the old ideas.
Yeah.
That, I don't know. I figured I would just bring it up again, see what else you had to say about it.
My desires for, like, money, because of... It was only because I was in the U.S. It was only in the U.S. that I realized, like, oh, hey, like, wow, people really make a thing out here for themselves. This is great. So my environment changed and my desire changed. In Russia, there was no desire like this. Communist Russia, circa 1982 and earlier, at least when I was there. So, I don't think this is that important.
Okay.
Your desire is your desire, and it'll just naturally be based on your environment. Because, like I said, if all you see is A, B, C, D, where does it enter your mind that E is possible?
So you don't think that there are people that are in very like low statuses in the world that are dreaming about being Elon Musk? Because I'm sure they exist. Don't you think they exist? Don't you think there are people? It's not like you're prevented from that.
But I mean, like, I think most people are rational enough. Like, if the Hindus have the caste system, right? If you're in the slums, you could look up at the high rises of the higher caste, and you could say, one of these days, I want to be in that building. It's in your environment. But when all you have is a bread line and a couple of, like, grayed out buildings, where do you go from there?
Let's just assume that was... Let's just assume whatever you said today was what those people in a position that could relate to you due to your background, they can get that and grab onto it.
By the way, I'll add this other thing. This is a mystery everyone has to unravel for themselves. I'm sure some of the things I said will help, but not all of them. The one other thing is that I've noticed you are frozen in your childhood traumas. And there are a bunch of them, but there's the big one. There's the 80%. You got to find it. And you're going to find that your 80% childhood trauma that you're frozen in is the thing you're desiring to fix. So for me, like, oh, hey, there's no money here. Like, oh, hey, we're going to this new country. Oh, hey, we don't speak the language. Oh, hey, my parents are always fighting about money. Oh, hey, they might get a divorce because this money thing. Like, oh, dad says, money's tough to come by. You're never going to, you're always going to be a slave to the job. And dude, so I'm frozen in that. And it's not, like I said, I've always given you credit. It's not until I was like, wow, look at Maggie go. Like, she's really, like, I've never seen this. She's got a totally different disposition about, I'm stressing out. Like, money's a little thin with what's going on here. But she's like, no, this is cool. We're going to do this, this, and that. And that helped me to kind of like melt away the frozen, traumatic thing of that child. And it's been an uphill battle. It's taken a really long time, but now as the stuff thaws, I could start to kind of self-reflect and see like the error of my ways. And before we met, I've always been a hard-working dude, I assure you. I spent my 20s, the bulk of them, while my friends were out doing what 20-year-olds should be doing. Clubbing, looking for chicks, whatever. I was at home, like, learning, studying about, like, business and money, and I worked really hard. I tried 1,001 ideas, and they all failed. And every time they failed, I just remember, I'm not going to accept this. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to, and I thought like, ooh, that's really how heroic and poetic of me. Like, wow, what a guy I am. And the only thing
that is a good quality. Continue.
Yes, but I wasn't allowing the rain and the sunshine in. Do you see what I'm saying?
You needed a moment there to just...
Yeah, it was just like, you're not good enough. You got to try harder. Dude, in the equation, it was me plus me equals me. What it should have been is me plus the essence of divinity equals achievement of desire. That's the formula. And what I'm saying is...
I like that. Me plus me equals me is good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I did this for a long... I exhausted myself, and I became more bitter and hardened, and the world wasn't fair, and life is out to get me. And not once, and I'm embarrassed to say it, not once did I have that moment of reflection where I was like, wow, man, you've really done some dumb shit. And every single time something mysterious came by and made sure you were okay. And
I feel like I've had that too.
Yeah, I think most people, that's why I'm saying, like, you really need a moment with yourself of honesty where you could think back and just realize, like, oh, there was some invisible thing that saved my ass. And
well, yeah, what am I saying? Everybody has that.
Right.
It's not just us, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And after that, look at the virtues and just be like, when I get mad or frustrated or upset that my desire isn't being fulfilled or my creation isn't coming to pass, why is that? Well, I'm holding the umbrella over where I planted the seed. I need the sun and I need the rain. Now, what is the umbrella symbolizing? It's symbolizing some virtues I'm not respecting, or some sins. I hate to call them sins. Sin just means without virtue, essentially. But like, what are these things? Like, how can I let the rain in? And for me, it might be different for everybody, but I suspect, I don't know, it might be different for everybody. I quickly realized you're being impatient because you think it should come quicker. The village idiot thinks it should come quicker.
I'm ignoring everything in my life that's good and only focusing on this bullshit thing that isn't working out.
Yeah, and the other thing is acceptance. And by the way, those kind of go hand in hand, because the minute you start to accept shit, oh, you have all the patience in the world. Like, I trust that this is not my task.
Yeah, and then you're like, what do I do with myself now? Now I need to go read a book.
It gets a little tricky.
Get a hobby.
Yeah, that gets a little tricky. Like, you start to, but that's, anyways, that's my thesis for the last, since we did this last time. I've had time to think about it. And by the way, I have not mastered these things. Every day I have to remind myself. Sometimes I'll go into a tailspin where I'm literally like in the idiot brain, and I'm like, man, I'm exhausted, I'm angry, I hate the world, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? You're doing that thing. You know, it's like, relax, give it up, let the essence, you know, and I have to correct myself. It's a, you know, it's a discipline. It's a work in progress.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. Yeah. So.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah.
Any final words?
That was it.
All right. Well, this is a highly anticipated
I'm
video.
glad. And everybody, thank you for your very kind comments. If it helped anybody, that really fills my heart with joy. So thank you for watching, and I really hope this does help somebody. I really, really do.
I'm sure it will.
Good.
All right. Adios. Sayonara. See you in 2030 for the
Toodles.
next one.